knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Hey everyone, it's Nate here, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Bob Dylan song, Knocking on Heaven's Door, and I cannot believe I haven't done this for the site yet. This should be like one of the first songs that I ever do, because it's a great song. It's not that hard to get into. So what we're going to do is kind of take a look at the 5 pillars of getting better at guitar in general and learning songs when you're like a beginner to mid-intermediate player. And those 5 pillars are clean chords, clean chord transitions, strumming, timing, and then song layout. And if you need more information on any of these topics, go to guitarfm.com and create your complimentary account. You'll get access to the first module of all of our premium courses. In particular, there's a course in there called the Chord Transition Trainer that is very helpful for the first 2 pillars, clean chords and clean chord transitions. And then the Strumming Doctor is excellent for getting your strumming and timing together. So if you haven't done that, go create your complimentary account and we'll see you in there. Okay, as usual, all the resources for this lesson are on the Guitar Fam site, so you can get the jam track with no guitar or the jam track with no guitar or vocals if you want to play and sing along to it. And then the chord chart with all 5 strumming patterns we're going to be going over for the song are there for you too. Okay, let's just start by looking at what key we're in. We're in the key of G major, and the key of G major is G is 1, G major, 2 is A minor, 3 is B minor, C major is 4, D major is 5, E minor is 6, and then F sharp diminished is 7. And there are only 4 chords in this entire song, and you can use different variations on these if you want. It doesn't really matter. But I'm gonna go with the simple cowboy chord since I'm assuming this is one of your first tunes that you're learning. The first chord is a G. And I like to use this 3-finger G with using my pinky because it makes it easier to switch back and forth from C. But if this is the G, using 1, 2, and 3, that's totally fine. You can also use the 4-finger G if you like. Okay, but remember the first pillar here is getting the chords down first. So spend some time every day working on just, getting each chord on it. If you notice one lagging behind, spend a little extra time, for example, on that C, if that one's a little not as in good a shape as the rest of them. The next chord, these are just in the order in which they appear in the song, is a D major. And for the D major, make sure not to hit the E or A strings, just the highest or thinnest 4 strings there, right? And then A minor is the next chord, so the 2 chord. And for the A minor, don't forget to leave off the low E string and just hit 5 strings, starting on the A string right there. Okay, and then the last chord we need is a C major. This same thing here, don't hit the low E string here, just the thinnest 5 strings. Okay, and for most people, the C is probably going to be the toughest one. You may have to spend a little extra time in there to get the clearance. So if it sounds like this, just bring your elbow in a little bit, let it kind of hang down by the side of your body, and think about curving your fingers over toe. And I'm coming in like at a pretty good angle there. It's not straight like this, almost like a 35 or a 45 degree angle there, so I can get some clearance on those strings to get over them so it doesn't end up being muted like that. Okay, so that's pillar 1. Get the chords down on their own first. Set aside 2, 3, 4 minutes to just work on the individual chords. And as you practice these chords, do your best to come down all at once. So if you see a finger that's lagging behind, kind of like this, try to come down slower and get control of your fingers to where they all land at once. And if you need help with this, there's a course on the Guitar Fam site called the Chord Transition Trainer that will help you make clean chords and get your transitions between foundational chords like this down really well. Go ahead and check that out. Okay, so that's step 1, is to get those chords down. Step number 2 is to take a look at the progression and work on changing between any 2 adjacent chords or chord transitions. So the chord progression here is pretty simple. It's only 4 measures long for the whole song, and it just repeats over and over again. So it's kind of nice. Step 5, keeping track of where you are in the song, the layout of the song isn't too hard. You just repeat these 4 measures over and over again. You have a G for 2 beats, so 1, 2, and then you switch to a D for 3, 4, and then the next measure is a full measure of A minor, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those first 2 measures, 1, 2, D, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4. So what I would do here is just work on any 2 adjacent chords. So the first 2 are just G and D, right? This is pillar number 2, chord transitions, right? Just put in the work. And if you notice, like your D is stumbling you up more, than the G or vice versa, spend more time in step 1 and pillar 1 on that. And just working getting that chord on there cleanly on its own. Once you can do that, any 2 adjacent chords, so G to D, you take 5 minutes and go G to D, and then D to A minor. And really isolate those chord changes. And when you isolate things like this, it'll make it much easier when you put everything together. You won't be overwhelmed as much when you try to play through the song in time, you know, along to the track. Okay, so the next 2 measures are very similar. You go G, D again for 2 beats each, G to D, 4. And when I do that, I'm just counting the letters as the number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And be careful on that D to only hit those 4 strings. Leave the low E and A strings out. And then the next measure, measure 4 of this whole phrase, is a C instead of an A minor. So we go to a C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to a C for a full measure. And you'll notice my thumb's hanging out over here. What it's doing is muting the low E string in case I accidentally hit it. But again, for the C chord, you don't want to hit that low E string. So the second 2 measures do the same thing. Take just the first 2 adjacent chords, which are the same as, you know, the last 2 measures, G and D. And if you're good there, that's cool. And then take the next 2 adjacent chords, D and C, and spend some time going from D to C. And if C is a bottleneck for you, spend more time on the C in your first stage of practice, you know, just the clean chords. And the last one, make sure not to overlook, is going back, starting the progression over from C to G. So you do need to practice C to G to start the progression over with. And this is where you can see where it's much easier to go from this C to this G than it is from this C to this version of G. I have a big posture shift that has to take place there, which makes it a little bit more cumbersome to change chords there. This one is harder to get down initially, but you'll thank yourself for you if you put in the time with this G chord right now. It'll be really good for you. Okay, so that's kind of step 2 for this. First, clean chords. Second, chord transitions. Then after that, you can start working on your strumming. And for step 3, I would recommend, or at least for right now, not working on this in time to a metronome until you get the actual strumming pattern down. I have 5 different strumming patterns for you here. And, you know, just work on level 1 and get it to where you can play without a metronome, and then introduce a metronome. Then work on level 2 on its own with no metronome or jam track, and then introduce the metronome once you're comfortable with it. And that's really kind of step 4 and 3 and 4 blending in, you know, playing in time. Or timing would be step number 4. So let's just take a look at level 1. We've already been kind of doing this. It's just 2 half notes on a G and a D for the first measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the A minor for a whole measure, right? And then same thing, G, 2, 3, 4, and then C for a whole measure. And that's the basic strumming pattern. This keeps it simple enough to where you can really concentrate on the chords, getting clean chords and getting clean chord transitions. And if you can't do this yet, don't even worry about the next 4 strumming patterns. Wait until you can do this and then jump into the remaining 4 strumming patterns, because it's only going to get tougher from here, or more challenging from here, and you have less time to make sure that those clean chord transitions are right there where they need to be. So let's go ahead and look at strumming level number 2. Actually, let me play 1 all the way through for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're new to guitar, that should be your goal for right now. That's attainable enough to where you can work on it every day for a while and be able to do it and play through a full song. That's a big win. When you're ready, you can move on to the next strumming level, where we're just going to play quarter notes for everything with all downstrokes. So same counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this will force you to get a little more urgency behind your chord changes. So for example, playing G, I have less time, you know, the gap is going to be more noticeable because the notes are coming faster between chords. So I can't do that as much. I can't cut the chord short. Right? Okay. So treat this the same way. Do it without a metronome at first. Get it to where you can count it out loud. You don't really have to think about it too much. And then introduce a metronome or the jam track or, you know, the original recording, the Bob Dylan tune. And just play along to it. That's a good second step. Step number 3 doubles down. What we're going to do is play all 8 notes, twice as many strums with all downstrokes. And this is quite a bit faster, so you're really going to notice any gaps in your chord transitions. But that's okay, because like this is a good opportunity to take your chord transitions to the next level, right? So it's going to be, you're going to change your counting from just 1, 2, 3, 4 to 8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you can do all downstrokes on those. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now what you're probably going to notice is something like this is going to happen. This is completely natural. It's just something you're going to have to work on closing the gap between. You're probably going to get something like this: 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4. Like, I don't know if you saw what happened there, but I was taking the last 8th note of each chord and playing it open. And 2 and 3 and 4, and to give me time to get to the next chord change. And that happens a lot. You'll hear this in music all the time when people do this, but ideally you want to be, you know, use that as a tool to get this strumming pattern down, but work on getting to where you don't need that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 3 and 4. Okay, right. So this strumming level 3 is kind of 2 in 1. You got to get this basic strumming pattern down, but you also need to work on the transitions being nice and quick between each chord. So again, do this without a metronome, and then once you're feeling comfortable with it, you don't feel like you have to think about too many things at once, pull up a metronome or the jam track and give this one a try. Okay, for strumming level 4, what we're going to do is add a 16th note. And you may panic to yourself, like, I'm new, I can't do 16 notes yet. Guess what? You already are. Check it out. If you're doing this 8th note strumming pattern, all your downstrokes are 8th notes, but every upstroke that you're doing to reset your downstroke is a 16th note. Down, up, down, up, right? You're already doing the 16th note. So all you're going to do is dig in on some of these upstrokes that you're already performing. And the key here is to keep a really light grip on the pick and stay, you know, loose here and get some rotation there and here. So the pattern in general for this one is 1 and 2 and so if you're counting 16 notes, 1 E and 2 E and so that at the end of 2 on the of 2 is what you're shooting for. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so the of beat 2 is the 16th note you're going to be shooting for with that upstroke. And you're already doing these upstrokes. So let me just count this out for you. 1 E and 2 E and so be really mechanical if you have to at first with this. 1 E and 2 E and play with the angle of the pick. If you come in at a really flat angle, it can kind of get caught in the strings. If you put too much of the pick into the strings, it can get caught in that upstroke. So just remember those things. So it will end up sounding like this. I'm just going to stay on a G with that 2-beat strumming pattern. Now notice something, my hand is just bouncing like this in time, right? Now if I were to shut the sound off on this video and just do 8 notes, and then do strumming pattern 4, they look exactly the same. My hand's just doing this. I'm just choosing to let the pick run through the strings on the of beat 2. And you do the same thing. So get that down first, and then the next 2 beats are the same thing. You just do it on D. 3 and 4 and then for the next measure, it's still divided up into 2-beat phrases with the strumming pattern. 1 and 2 and 4. Okay, and then it's the same thing for the next 2 measures. Same exact strumming pattern. So just think of this as a 2-beat strumming pattern that you play throughout this chord progression. And the G's and D's are always 2 beats, so you only play the strumming pattern once for each one of those chords. And the A minor and the C are always 4 beats, so you play that strumming pattern twice for each of those chords, and it'll sound like this: 1, 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, and we're getting awfully close to what the final kind of synopsis strumming pattern for this song is, which is number 5. But let me just say this right again. Do this without a metronome at first. Do it without changing chords at first. Once you feel comfortable with it on one chord, then put it in the chord progression. Once you feel comfortable with that, then put it in time. And that's really, we're doing steps 3 and 4. We're working on timing here also, or I'm alluding to it. But it's important to get strumming patterns and chord changes down before you hold yourself to a metronome or some kind of consistent beat, because it's a lot to think about. And if you separate the challenges like this, it'll be much easier when you bring it all together in what is really step 4, which is timing, right? And again, step 5, we don't have to worry about a lot here because it's just this strumming pattern, or sorry, this chord progression over and over and over again throughout the entire song, which is cool. As long as you're aware that you've already kind of completed step 5 or pillar 5 there. Okay, let's take a look at strumming pattern level 5, and it's the same on G and D. Da 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 da. So 1 and 2 and a. So. Okay, now here's where it changes a little bit. The first 2 beats of A minor are the same. From there, beats 3 and 4 of A minor are going to be all 16th notes. So 3, 4, okay, so all 16th notes. That's the only difference between this strumming pattern and the last one. You're going to do that for A minor and C major. And what happens is he ends up, first off, just get that down. So let me count that out for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. So that's a lot to think about. And with all these 16th notes in there, you're going to notice you don't have a lot of time to get to that next chord. So you're going to have to work on your chord transitions and get them, get them to where they're kind of spring-loaded and really deadly accurate, from just with chord pairs, any 2 adjacent chords. Now, once you can do that, again, go through the same thing. No metronome. Get comfortable where it's just a strumming pattern on its own, even if you have to mute it. Then put it with the chords. And then once you're comfortable with that, like the last little piece of decoration that I want to mention to you here, it's just on those 16th notes at the end on beats 3 and 4 of the A minor and the C major. What he ends up doing is kind of accenting the upstrokes, da 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 da, and you'll hear it. He doesn't do it all the time in the song, but it's something that's nice that kind of puts a little finishing touch on here. So 1, 2. So all I'm doing is digging in a little bit harder with my upstrokes. And I'm not necessarily even digging in harder on my upstrokes. I'm not hitting my downstrokes as hard, and that makes the upstrokes pop out. I guess a little bit of both, but it's the difference between this. Here's unaccented. Accented. If you hear that, it just gives some shape to that strumming pattern and helps kind of bring it to life in the style of the song a little bit. So that's the last little piece of decoration. And what I'll do in the play along or the playthrough of the entire song is I'll go through each one of these 5 levels of strumming, and then toward the end I'll just play whatever I feel like, because he's not always consistent with this. He's just playing stuff like this, like the last 2 level 4 and level 5 strumming patterns. Just kind of mixing it up and doing whatever he feels, and that's the ultimate goal. And if you break these challenges apart to individual chords, going right to the chords, then changing between any 2 adjacent chords or chord transitions, then strumming patterns, then timing, and of course song layout, it'll be much easier when you bring it all together to try to play more musically with this. Okay, that's it for this one. If you have any questions at all, if you're just getting into guitar, please contact us, support@guitarfam.com, and go to GuitarFam and create your complimentary account. Again, you'll be able to access the first module of all of our premium courses, and every GuitarFam member